How's it going? My name's James. Welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be doing a book haul. This is my April book haul. It's a little late. We're going to be talking about some books, mostly books that I found at our local Friends of the Library sale, which, if you don't know what that is, basically twice a year. I don't know if this is like a thing that libraries do everywhere, but our library does it every year, where twice a year they basically just have a certain amount of books that they need to get out of the libraries to make room for new books. And so they just have a big, huge sale it takes place at our fairgrounds. It's just like a big open complex basically. And there's just books everywhere. And usually it's a pretty great and inexpensive way to find some really nice books. A lot of the books there are in really good condition. They kind of have it split into two sections. So one section is like the books that are not in as good condition, and then they have like the books that are kind of nicer and maybe a little newer, but like the price difference is literally like $1 for a book or $5 for a book or $10 for a book. I think all the books that I got today I got for less than 20, which is pretty good considering I got like 7 books. And so I think I spent maybe $12 or $13, and I'm pretty happy with that. And so I'm also pretty happy with the mix. It's a bunch of different genres and a bunch of different authors than what I normally buy, well, with one exception, but different authors than what I normally buy. Some authors that I had never even heard of, some books I had never even heard of. And so I'm really excited to jump into those today. Real quick, before we get started, if you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what the most recent book that you bought was, and if you're enjoying it. Okay, we'll get started. We're gonna start with my exception to authors that I don't normally read. And this is, like I said, this is an author that I read. I'm actually reading this series right now, but they had a pretty decent quality or decent condition mass market Ship of Destiny. I haven't even started that ship yet, so I'm not even going to begin, obviously, this. I kind of did this with Farseer, where I bought the whole series used in paperback. And until I got the illustrated editions, those were what I read. But I kind of like, I don't know if you can see them up on the shelf up there, but I kind of like having the mass markets next to the nicer ones. I also like being able to just chuck a mass market in my backpack and literally not care about it at all. Maybe that makes some people cringe. Anyway, yeah, I think that I got this for like maybe $2, and it's in like, there's a little bit of like fraying on the corner, but it's in like literally perfect condition. And so I was pretty stoked about that, to not only find a Robin Hobb book, but one that's actually in the series that I'm currently reading. Was a pretty good way. I think this was literally the first book that I found, and so that was a pretty good way to kick off the sale. The next book is one that is by an author that I have technically only read one book of theirs so far, but I really enjoyed it, and that is Dan Simmons. I read Hyperion last year, I think, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of those books that like I've been wanting to read, The Fall of Hyperion, for a while, and just haven't been able to make my way to it. But I found The Terror by Dan Simmons, which is not obviously in the Hyperion Cantos, but it is, I believe it's historical fiction, and it's also kind of a thriller. I'll read the back just in case you've never heard of this. The men on board the HMS Terror, part of the 1845 Franklin expedition, the first steam-powered vessels ever to search the legendary Northwest Passage, are entering a second summer in the Arctic Circle without a thaw, stranded in a nightmarish landscape of encroaching ice and darkness. Endlessly cold, they struggle to survive with poisonous rations, a dwindling coal supply, and ships buckling in the grip of crushing ice. But their real enemy is even more terrifying. There is something out there in the frigid darkness, an unseen predator stalking their ship, a monstrous terror clawing to get in. Something that I thought was really notable about Hyperion when I read it is how creepy and chilling some of the stories. If you've never read Hyperion, it's a collection of different people's life stories as they're journeying together on this, like, I guess you could call it a pilgrimage, but it's very science fiction. And some of the stories that are in Hyperion are very chilling. And so this seems like it would also be a pretty chilling read. And I like that it's historical fiction, which one of my goals for the year was to actually read at least one historical fiction book. I'm predominantly a science fiction and fantasy channel, but I want to branch out a little bit into historical fiction. And I think that having something that is also just a little thrilling and maybe a little unnerving would be a fun way to do that too. And I know that I like Dan Simmons' writing, and so I think it would be fun to read something that's not science fiction. And I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about this book, and sometimes that's fun. Like, I don't think I'll look up reviews. I don't think I'll ask anybody if they've read it. I think I'll just kind of reach for this one whenever I feel like I'm ready to read it and see how I feel about it. The next two books are also outside of my normal genre. They're actually nonfiction, but I love documentaries, especially documentaries about extreme sports. So mountain climbers, rock climbers, mountain biking. I love all of that stuff. And I basically just mindlessly consume any documentary or any story that I can about people, climbing Mount Everest or things like that. But I haven't really read a lot of books like that. And so while I was there, I kind of found they had a section that was kind of labeled real life adventures. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of interesting. And they actually had these two books next to each other. And I picked up this first one. It's called The Breach, Kilimanjaro, and the Conquest of Self by Rob Taylor. And inside of the cover, literally in the synopsis, it says, "Not since the snow leopard has there been such a spectacular tale of mountain adventure and spiritual challenge." Well, right next to this book was The Snow Leopard by Peter Mathiasson, I think is how you say the last name. And basically both of these are kind of exploratory adventure, self-discovery books. I'm not entirely, once again, sure really what they're about. I just know that they involve some aspect of mountain climbing and some aspect of peril, but also some aspect of self-discovery. I think that that's part of what attracts me to that, especially that genre of documentary. I mean, really the views of what they're able to see, climbing these mountains is stunning. But you also learn a lot about yourself doing those kinds of things. I would imagine. I've never done it. But I do think it's fascinating to listen to the stories of people who have done something like that and hear just how much they learned about what their body is capable of and how much of it is not even, it gets to a point where it's not even physical anymore. It's a mental battle that they have to go through. And so, yeah, both of these, honestly, the back of this one is kind of cool. I can't really tell if that's in focus or not, but I figured that since this one referenced this one and they were both kind of about mountain climbing and they were right next to each other, I just grab them both. I don't know when I'll get to these. I'd like to read nonfiction this year too, just to kind of break up the monotony of all of the fantasy and science fiction that I have planned and that I have been reading. I thought that these two would be kind of a fun way and an interesting way to do that. And they're also so short. This one is just barely 300 pages. This one is, I think, even shorter. Yeah, this one's just over 250 with pretty big font, with pretty big, yeah, font. I don't think it would take me long to read these at all. And it would just be kind of a fun way to branch outside of my normal reading genre, but kind of dip into maybe a genre that I've enjoyed experiencing in another way. So yeah, The Snow Leopard by Peter Mathiasson and The Breach by Rob Taylor. We'll see how those are. So the next three are all by the same author. They're my last books. And it is an author that I feel like I have talked about a decent amount on the channel, but I am yet to read a single book by him. I have a video where I rank all of his books without having read any of them, just for in the event that I someday read hopefully all of his books. Hopefully I enjoy them all and I want to read them all. I found three really good condition Guy Gavriel Kay books. I actually went to the book sale 2 separate days because at the end of each, I think it's like 4 days long, and at the end of each day they will put out new books before the next day. So basically, like, you can go one day and if the tables look kind of picked over, if you can go earlier in the next day, chances are they might have set something new out. And that's what happened here. So I found Sailing to Sarantium first and was like, okay, sick. It's a really good, like, hardcover edition. It's got kind of an old look to it, but it's a really nice hardcover edition. The pages are all like really clean, and I knew that Guy Gavriel Kay is an author that I want to read, and so I just grabbed it. Well, the next day they had set out, basically in the exact same area, they had set out more books, and they set out Lord of Emperors, which is book 2 of the Sarantine Mosaic. This is a duology, so I thought it was kind of sick being able to find both books in this series and get them both for, I think I paid less than $5 to get both of them. So I was pretty stoked about that, and I hope to be able to maybe try some Guy Gavriel Kay by the end of the year. And I was really wanting to start with the Lions of Al-Razan, because I, just having read all of the prologues and stuff from my ranking video, which, don't go watch that video. The quality of it is terrible. I think it's just something that I want for posterity whenever I actually get around to reading these someday. Lions of Al-Razan was one that I think I was pretty excited to read. And then Sailing to Sarantium was one that I actually don't even remember where I put this series, just based on the synopsis. And so I might just start with these since I have both of them, or I might jump into, I'm trying to remember the other. I have the Summer Tree already on the shelf, and then right next to Lords of Emperors was The Last Light of the Sun, also by Guy Gavriel Kay. I don't really remember what this book is about either from the synopsis, but yeah, to find 3 really good condition Guy Gavriel Kay hardcovers was a pretty great way to finish off the library book sale that weekend. And so I'm pretty happy with all of those finds. They're all books that I think I will read at one point or another eventually, if I can ever finish Malazan or Realm of the Elderlings, which those are the 2 kind of priority series for me right now. And so I at least want to get on the other side of Live Ship Traders and get a couple more books into Malazan before I really start undertaking maybe different authors or different series. But I think The Terror is probably the one that I'm the most excited for right now, just because I really like the idea of reading a standalone historical fiction. And that might be a fun one to kind of mix into at the end of October, as things are starting to get colder where I live and it's kind of into spooky season. And so that might be a good time to pick that one up. I don't know. That kind of brings me to the end. I'm out of books. Like I said, I don't know if library book sales are something that happens everywhere, or if it's just something that our local library does. I'd be kind of surprised if it was just a local thing here. But I highly recommend checking it out if you do have one near you. It's a really, really great and easy way to add some books to your shelf for not a lot of money. So I think that's all I got this time, but I'll catch you in the next one.